Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Since I have been taking the floor for the second time, I would like also to extend my gratefulness to the organizers and to those who have invited me to take part of this very important initiative, the Nordic Initiative. And I'm grateful to your presence and also to the presence of your colleagues and all of you. Having said that, this is not part of my 5 minutes intervention. My dear friends, look, what is the common factor between what you rightly said, Palestine, Lebanon, Iran, Yemen, Somalia, and Syria? The common factor between all these countries is that they have been under attack by Israel. And that since October 7, Israeli borders have been extended, and Israel has annexed more than 541 square kilometers, including certain parts of South Lebanon, the Golan Heights, parts of Gaza, and so on and so forth. Now, also, I don't exaggerate if I say that the borders of Israel now are on the borders of Russia. The security borders of Israel are exactly on the borders of Russia, covering all of Palestine, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and of course the skies of Iran, and then that's the borders of Russia. We have seen, I spoke the day before yesterday, and we have seen the massacres and the genocide that Israel has committed against our people in Gaza. I know what you rightly said, my dear friend Johan, that of course Hamas initiated this. It's not a secret, we know that. But we also know that the Palestine struggle for freedom did not start in October 7. Palestine struggle started in 1948, where 950,000 Palestinians have been made refugees. 531 Palestinian villages and towns were leveled to earth. And 16,000 Palestinians have been killed. 62,000 houses were destroyed in 1948. So the struggle for Palestine did not start in October 7. That's why we have to see things in an accumulative way rather than in an isolated incident. But of course, let's assume that Israel has killed 10,000 of Hamas fighters in Gaza. Let me say Israel has killed 20,000 Hamas fighters. But what about the 80,000 others? The number of Palestinians who have been killed since October 7 is up to 100,000 people. If only 10, 20, 25, 30,000 were Hamas affiliates, then Israel has killed 70 to 80,000 Palestinian women and children, innocent people. So therefore, the issue is not about what Israeli reaction is. The issue is about that Israel has used what has happened in October 7 to kill as many Palestinians as possible, transfer as many Palestinians as possible, and used what has happened in Gaza as an umbrella to also commit more serious crimes in the West Bank. Before October 7, 241 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank. Settler terrorism that you refer to was already there. Today there are 881,000 Jewish settlers who are living illegally in an illegally constructed Jewish settlements that was built on an illegally expropriated Palestinian territories, Palestinian land, privately owned land. So the situation that we have been seeing is that Israel has been launching 4 serious wars on us and a 5th on the United Nations. A war on geography, that's land expropriation. A war on demography, that's killing people. There are 21,000 Palestinians in Israeli prisons facing slow death, torture. Men have been raped by dogs in Israeli prisons. Women have been raped. We documented cases of 3 Palestinian women who were raped by Israeli soldiers, and they are pregnant. So the situation is extremely catastrophic. We have seen Israel crossed so many taboos that we have never seen before. The massive killing, massive destruction, rape, planting fear in the hearts of children and women and so on. 20,000 orphans, God knows how many handicapped, and so on. So the situation is really catastrophic. The third war that Israel is launching is on our finances. Israel is deducting about 14 billion shekels of our taxes that Israel should have transferred to us because we don't control borders, and Israel is collecting taxes on our behalf that should have been transferred to us every end of the month. And then a fourth war is a war on narrative. When Israel claims that the Palestinian territory is God-given land, a promised land, a land given by God to the Jewish people. This is a war on narrative. When I meet an Israeli and he asks me, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Nablus. He said, no, you are from Shechem. And then I argue whether my town is called Nablus or my town is called Shechem, the Hebrew name of Nablus. So that is a falsification of narrative. When the Israelis, they say the Palestinian territory is not occupied territory, it's disputed territory. That's a falsification of narrative. When the Israelis, they say we have the right to return to Judea and Samaria, that's a falsification of narrative. When the Israelis claim that falafel and hummus is a Jewish invention, that is a falsification of narrative. When the Israeli hostesses with Al Al airline, they dress the Palestinian embroidered customs, that's a falsification of culture and narrative. And the fifth war that Israel is launching is on UNRWA. What crime did UNRWA committed against Israel? Nothing. UNRWA is the accumulative memory of the Palestinian refugees. UNRWA is the guardian of right of return to the Palestinian people. And now UNRWA has been banished. Their offices has been closed in Jerusalem, and yesterday the Israeli cabinet decided to cut off all electricity and water supplies from the main headquarters of UNRWA in Jerusalem. So, my dear friends, the war that Palestinians are facing is at every level, on infrastructure, on people, on geography, on demography, on land, on water, at every level. Why UNRWA? Because, as I said, UNRWA is the accumulative memory of the issue of Palestinian refugees that goes back to 1948. And then we should know. I was arguing the other day with my dear brother and friend, the Prime Minister of Lebanon. And I was telling him that there was an agreement between Hamas, Qatar, United States, and Israel to finance Hamas. Hamas used to receive $30 million every month in cash money from Qatar under the instructions of the Americans with the full approval of Netanyahu. Why? Because Netanyahu wanted to buy quietness for security. Because Netanyahu's strategy was designed to kill every possibility of two-state solution, to keep Gaza fully and totally isolated from the rest of the Palestinian territory. When I asked the Prime Minister of Qatar, I told him, you will be taken to American courts for financing Hamas. He said, no. And then he took a piece of paper and he showed me. And he said, this is the letter that I was asked by the Americans to finance Hamas. So therefore, we should go deep into the politics of the situation rather than only at the surface of it. And also, the way you have described is a very serious issue. The settler terrorism is not about listing one single settler or two or four as the terrorists. It is not. We should hold Israel responsible for all these acts, because these people, they don't act as individuals. They're financed by the government. They're armed by the government. Ben Ghafir has distributed 100,000 machine guns to settlers. Every settler is an army soldier. Every army soldier, most of them, they are settlers. So the dividing line between government and settlements, government and settlers, army soldiers and settlers, it doesn't exist. They're the same. They serve the same purpose and they serve the same objective. Now, also, my dear friends, the Palestinians, we did not invent ICC. The International Criminal Court is not a Palestinian Arab Muslim invention. It was there, and we joined it. And now we are punished because we joined ICC. And the Americans are saying, in order for you to be part of the governance of Gaza, you have to withdraw your application from ICC. Excuse me? ICC is a peaceful measure, a peaceful international legal measure that we joined. It's not a criminal act. But there are criminals who have been standing accused, Netanyahu, his Minister of Defense, and others to follow. And then what happened? That the ICC is under sanction, that the judges are threatened, that their names are listed as wanted and their bank accounts were closed, and so on and so forth. And the Attorney General of the ICC, regardless, he has been under incredible attack. Why? Because of the Palestine issue. So we are not committing any wrongs. I was the Prime Minister in October 7, and what did we do? I said to our security people, don't allow any attack on Israel, because we don't want to give the Israelis any justification to push our people out of the West Bank into Jordan. What did we get in return? Destruction of refugee camp of Jenin, destruction of refugee camp of Nur Shams near Tulkarem, attacks on the old city of Nablus, and then thousands of people have been killed in the West Bank at a time when we wanted a situation to be very calm. What I mean to say, my dear friend, Mr. Chairman, is that the whole attack is not on Hamas, is on every single Palestinian element, a he or a she, civilian, non-civilians, official, non-officials, land, people, culture. And yesterday I was telling you that the borders of Israel used to be, according to the Israel definition of borders, is where the last Israeli foot of a soldier can be. Now, the borders of a Jewish settlement is where a last goat can reach, because the Israelis are taking people's cows and goats and camels and donkeys and so on, and they become settler shepherds to claim that they are the product of the land. They are not. They're Russian immigrants, Brooklyn immigrants, and so on and so forth. We are the sons of the soil. They are not. And therefore, the issue of settler terrorism, Israel should be held responsible for all these settlements that has been illegally planted in the Palestinian territories. And also, my dear friends, yesterday I was told that left political parties are pro-Palestine, right political parties are not, are pro-Israel. This is something that it should not be acceptable. People are pro-Palestine, people are pro-justice, people are pro-international law. It's not a dividing political line, left and right. This is a human rights issue. This is a respect of international law issue. This is something that's fighting for freedom and justice, an independent, sovereign, viable state of Palestine. It should not be a dividing line along these political parties, left and right and so on. It should not be. People should be standing solid with whoever is under injustice. Now, my dear friends, I know with all the time limitations, today, let me just quickly tell you what is happening. In 2 days' time, the Americans, they will announce the creation of a Palestinian technocratic committee to run the affairs of Gaza. They will call it GITA, Gaza International Transition Authority. That is supposed to live for 2 years, and the mandate of this GITA will end by the 31st of December 2027. But on the other hand, we had a Palestinian interim self-governing authority that has been ongoing for the last 32 years. And the time frame for the Palestinian Authority should have ended by May 4th, 1999. And the I for interim should have become I for independence by May 4th, 1999. And it's still ongoing. So the question for us today, how we and you can create this connectivity between one interim arrangement for Gaza and a transitional arrangement for the West Bank. And that's the big challenge that we will be facing in order for us to preserve the two-state solution that we are grateful to United Kingdom, to France, to Sweden, to Britain, to all the countries, Spain and others who recognize Palestine as a state on the borders of 1967. And therefore, I here call upon the likely-minded countries who recognize Palestine to create an international front for ending occupation. Because, my dear friends, if we don't make the Israeli occupation costly, this Israeli occupation will not end. And the costly Israeli occupation has to do with sanctions, economic sanctions, trade sanctions, academic sanctions, financial sanctions, and so on. And that is how the apartheid regime of South Africa has collapsed, because of sanctions. I was a student when we were sleeping nights in front of the South African embassy in London. And that is how the regime of South Africa has collapsed. And this is how we should make occupation regime collapse, by creating an international front to make the Israeli occupation with high cost. Because now the Israeli occupation makes profit. They take land for free, they take water for free, they take the lives of our children for free, they take, and they are not accountable. They are protected at the United Nations, they are protected everywhere, and Israel is acting above the law. 800 United Nations resolution has been passed in favor of Palestine. One single one was ever implemented. So United Nations Charter that has to do with making peace in the world is a total failure. The real test for UN structure is Palestine. And the real test for one standard is Palestine, because most of the countries are standing naked when it comes to Palestine because of the double standard. And we have seen double standard everywhere. Sanctions on Russia, but not sanctions on Israel. I was sitting beside First Lady of Ukraine, and I told her, Madam, could you kindly tell your husband that Palestinians are not occupying Israel? Our tanks are not in Tel Aviv. We are under Israeli occupation. So for Ukraine to say we are associating ourselves with Israel, that's a misunderstanding of reality. So therefore, the issue of double standard, we have to really fight against it and fully and totally avoid it. Now, I conclude by saying the following. I know that there are some questions that have no answers yet. How long will Israel stay in Gaza is an open-ended question. What sort of Hamas we will have after Gaza? It might demolish, it might become a political party, and it might move its action into the West Bank and other parts of the region. But in order for us to take part of the governance of Gaza, the international community, mainly the Americans, are saying that after you achieve your governance, and reforms. And then when we ask about what sort of reforms, what do you mean by reforms? The Americans are saying, well, you have to stop payments for Palestinian martyrs, Palestinian prisoners, and you have to withdraw your application from ICC, and you have to stop incitement. The Israelis are saying, oh, well, our definition of reform is that you have to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. My dear friends, Israel can call itself the Zionist Jewish, whatever they want. They can go to the United Nations and change their name. It's not my business. But they are saying, no, the Palestinians, you only have to recognize Palestine as a Jewish state. Why? Because we know why. Because the Israelis, they will say to our people inside Israel, out. That's where the state of Palestine is. You have no room here. And then Israel will say no right of return to the Palestinian refugees because they are coming to the Jewish state and you recognize Israel as a Jewish state. And when Harry Truman in 1948 was presented with a paper to recognize Israel as a Jewish state, he crossed it with his pencil. And he crossed the word Jewish and he said the state of Israel. So therefore, the issue of reform, it has nothing to do with fighting corruption. It has nothing to do with doing this and that. But we will do every right thing, including fighting corruption, including elections, parliamentarian election, presidential election. It's not a secret. Our president is 90 years old. He wants a dignified exit for himself, and he does not want to run. But help us. So the Israelis don't have a veto on our democracy when it comes to elections in every part of Palestine, including Jerusalem. I was the one who negotiated the chapter on elections with the Israelis. Palestinians in Jerusalem, they took part of 1996 elections, 2005 elections, 2006 elections. And when we announced election date on the 21st of May 2022, the Israelis, they said, if the chairman of the Central Election Commission arrives in Jerusalem, send 2 lawyers with him because we will arrest him. So we need to see democracy back on track in Palestine. We need the democratization of our society. We need a new blood in the system. We need young leadership. We need. And we need you to help us on create a front to end occupation, make occupation costly, help us with the reform agenda that has to do with municipal elections, which has been scheduled on the 25th of April this year. Fatah Conference, BLO, new elections, general elections for the parliament and the presidency and so on. We need your support. And I'm here to appreciate the initiative by the Nordic countries. Thank you, my dear friends, for all what you do. And thank you for not only the support for Palestine, but because you're standing solid for peace and justice. And you are standing solid with international law, because international law should not be divisible. It should be indivisible when it comes to Palestine, when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to every part of the world. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank those who invited me. I'm grateful to the effort that has been injected in this initiative, and we stay together for peace and justice in order for a state of Palestine to live side by side with the state of Israel and the Palestinians. For once, I received 16 children from Gaza before October 7. 16 children from Gaza in the age group between 6 and 14. And when they arrived in Ramallah, I asked them the following question. What is the thing that you found astonishing for you? You know what they told me? They were astonished to see a mountain in their first time in their life. They have never seen a mountain, because Ramallah is a mountainous area and Gaza is a coastal area. So I said, look, if I send 10 children from the West Bank to Gaza, they will be astonished to see the sea and the sand. So all what we are fighting for, my dear friends, is for our children to enjoy the sea and the sand, and for our children to hike on the mountains of Palestine. Thank you so much for having me. God bless you.